We're super excited that the SendGrid API is now part of the Twilio family. Phil Nash recently wrote a blog post showing how to take an incoming fax and turn it into an email using SendGrid. Let's see how it works. We'll start inside of the Twilio console and head down to runtime because we're going to use Twilio Functions. I'm going to pin that so that we can get access to it easily later and head into Functions and then head down into the configuration section. Here we're going to need to add some keys, a from email address, a to email address, so you can pick whatever you want there. And then you're going to need a SendGrid API key. If you don't already have one, it's pretty easy to get one if you just head over to sendgrid.com, hit the Start for Free button here at the top, make sure you've got the free option selected, and hit the Try for Free button down here. Fill in your information here, and eventually you'll land in your account. Go under Settings, go to API Keys, and create a new API key. For this one, I'm going to use full access, but you can configure the access however you want here. Create the key and copy it and bring it back over to Twilio Functions, where you can drop it here in the key value pair. Once you've got that saved, head to Manage. We're going to create a new function from the blank Twilio Functions template and hit Create. And then we're going to rename the function fax to email and head down into the code. All right, the first thing we're going to do here is bring in the request module. We're going to use that to make some HTTP requests over to SendGrid. Our function will run when a fax is received at our Twilio phone number. When that happens, we'll have a media URL that points to the PDF form of that fax. What we're going to do here is make a GET request to that fax URL. So we're going to pass in the fax URL as the URI with an encoding of null. And the callback here is going to have the error, the response, and the body from that request. Once that request comes back with the PDF, we're going to set up to send our email through SendGrid. The first thing we're going to do here is create an email object, and inside of it, we're going to set the personalizations. This is going to include the to email address. Now, if you remember correctly, we have that configured in the context as to_email_address. So we'll pull that from our configuration. The from, that's also in our configuration under the context from_email_address. We'll set a subject line for the email, and that's going to use a template string that says new fax from, and then we'll pull the from phone number from the function event. Then we'll set the content of the email to say that your fax is attached. The type of that is going to be text plain, and then the value will just say your fax is attached. Excellent. So that's a good setup for our email. And we're going to declare that there will be attachments, but we'll just populate it with an empty array for now. Once the request for the PDF comes back, we'll check to make sure there wasn't an error and that the response status code is 200 for OK. And if that's the case, that means we have the PDF and we can push it onto the attachments array. We'll set the content to the body.toString using base 64 encoding, because this is what SendGrid expects here, and we'll set the file name equal to template string here, event dot, we'll grab the fax SID and then add .pdf to the end of it, and we'll set the type equal to the responses content type headers. Okay, now we're ready to send our email. So we'll do a post request out to the SendGrid send mail address. That's https api.sendgrid.com/v3/mail/send. The body will be the email that we've created above, and the auth will be a bearer token, and that's going to be grabbed out of the context. That's the SendGrid API key that we stored in the configuration earlier, and we'll set JSON to true since we've formulated this in JSON. Callback here, have an error, response, and a body again from our request. If there's an error in this case, what we're going to do is just return with our callback from the function, passing in the error so that we can see it pop up in our logs. Otherwise, if there's no error, then we'll check to make sure the response's status code this time is 202. And if that's the case, then we'll just return an empty Twilio voice response to let Twilio know that the fax was handled okay. And otherwise, in this case, we'll simply return back the body of the response here. I'll zoom out so you can see the whole post request for sending the email. Okay, hit save to deploy the function, And then we're going to head up into the phone number section so that we can purchase a Twilio phone number to use for our fax to email setup here. So under Super Network, head to phone numbers and then down to buy a number. And here I'm going to search for a 215 area code phone number to get something in the Philadelphia area and make sure to check off fax for capabilities. I'll grab this first Philadelphia area phone number I find here and I'll hit buy and then buy this number. And then on the next screen, we'll hit setup number to head down into the phone number setup. Here inside of phone number setup, we're going to need the URL to our function. So I'm going to get that from runtime and bring it back over here. Where it says accept incoming under voice and calls, hit faxes here and change a fax comes into TWIML. We're going to use a TWIML bin here. Hit the red plus, call this receive fax. And then we're just going to specify the TWIML in here. It's really simple TWIML in this case. So we're just going to have a standard TWIML response, and the verb that we're going to use inside of that response is receive to tell it to process the fax. And then in the action, we'll give it the URL to the function that we just wrote and close off the response. Go ahead and hit create at this point and save the phone number configuration. Next, copy the phone number out of here. We're going to need that when we go over to the API Explorer. I don't have a fax machine right now, so to send a fax, I'm going to use Twilio's API Explorer inside of the runtime. Change the dropdown here to Programmable Fax Beta, and under Programmable Fax, head down to the post request /faxes. We can use this to send a fax to our Twilio phone number. I'm going to paste in the Twilio phone number in the to and from phone number fields. Doesn't really matter too much. We can send a fax to ourselves. And then inside of the media URL, you need a URL to a PDF. Over in Phil Nash's blog post, if you scroll down a bunch down to the bottom of the post, there's a section that's called testing everything out, I believe. And in that section, we can grab this test PDF file. So I'll copy the URL from the blog post here. If you're curious what it is, it's just a little bit of a meme. We'll just open that up in a new tab here and I'll show you. It says just the fax man. All right. We've got a URL to a PDF. We'll paste that in here. And then we'll head down and hit the button to make the request here. And once you do, it'll send a fax. Now, I don't have a fax machine, but we can play the sound of one. Yeah, I know. It's a little annoying. This is going to take a little bit to go through, so don't worry if you don't get your email right away. It takes a bit of time, but you eventually will land in your email with something that looks like this. So you'll have a new fax from your Twilio phone number. It'll have the PDF attached. That's going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider clicking the subscribe button over on the left. If you want to watch another video, I picked one out just for you in the top right, and if you're looking for the code, there's a button in the bottom right for that. Until next time, I'm out of here.